All right. Okay. So we're going to start with some inspiration. And one of the first people that we're going to look at, though I'm sure I think all of you have heard of, is Ansel Adams. Has anybody not heard of Ansel Adams? Which is probably almost impossible. If you haven't heard of him, you would have seen some of his photographs. And so I put Ansel Adams sort of in alternative photography because he shot in black and white mainly. And I consider black and white an alternative process, alternative photographic process, because it becomes abstract in the sense that we're taking the color out of whatever scene you're capturing. And on two levels, Ansel Adams sort of became iconic with his technical knowledge and developing what's called the zone system. And the zone system is a protocol that through exposure, and this is all in analog because that's what he dealt with. So the zone system is a protocol that works with working out what exposure for the scene that you're capturing, what exposure you want to use, and then the processing in the darkroom. So he would often do, say, either underexposure, overdevelopment, or overexpose, or underexpose and overexpose, underdevelop, one of the two. And along with that, got into very detailed testing, along with using different types of developer with different types of film, until he came up with a system that basically was bulletproof, where he could capture any scene tonality wise in black and white that had just an amazing range of tonal values. So we're going to take a look at this video of him that's pretty short, but it'll just sort of give you an idea again of the quality of his work. So let me bring that up. One sec. Share screen. Not forget to share the screen.
Ansel Adams created the most recognizable art photographs of the 20th century. The creation of this building and this center was the culmination of a life's work. One of the things that we know about Ansel Adams is that people recognize the photographs even if they're not that familiar with photography. His skill is that he can capture it and perceive that this thing is happening, then envision in his mind what that would look like as a finished photograph. They're very ephemeral. He's arrested a particular moment, just a fleeting moment that he's stopped and held for us within this photograph. I look at these pictures and I can feel the electricity in the air. I can smell what the desert smells like when the rain is falling. He uses light in a way that really reveals information about the people he's photographing. The same way we might if we were looking at a picture of a fence or a pine cone. He's conveying that same kind of lush photographic detail. I think Ansel Adams is a really important figure to understand in terms of the way in which he advocated for the medium.
Ansel was always thinking of a center for photography as somewhere where not only one could exhibit, but there was studio space, there was study, there was inquiry and a sharing, a dialogue going on. It was about the sustainability of an institution that could continuously be forward thinking. And photography's done that. It's changed over time. We're the premier research collection for fine art photography and archives in North America. We promote appreciation of the enduring influence of photography on our society. So curators, scholars, photo enthusiasts, photographers themselves come from all over the world to do research here.
He helped us understand that photography was an art, and he helped us understand that wilderness is a treasure.
I think his legacy was his advocacy. I think without his work, I think without his perseverance, that photography would be looked at much differently than it is today.
All right. So how many of you have seen Ansel Adams' work or reproductions of his work?
I have two of his books right here, actually.
Great. Have you seen one of his prints up close in, an original print?
No, I've never seen his work in person.
My mom, so she went to the University of Arizona, and I think it was like the president of the university or something. Somebody at the university had like negotiated that like part of, I don't know if it's part of his estate or like all of it or whatever is kind of housed at the university. And so
Right.
my mom, when she was going to school there, and then she had a job on campus, and they had a bunch of his prints up.
Mhm.
They would like rotate through them sometimes. So she actually like worked in an environment with a bunch of his prints, which I think is
Wow.
really cool.
That's fantastic. So how about Angela or Jasmine? Are you familiar with his work at all?
Yes, I've seen a few of his like not the originals, but like a reprint.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
And-
I haven't seen an original in person either, but I think that'd be an awesome experience.
Okay. The original prints are just nothing short of magnificent. And I don't know how much you know about his process other than what I've just sort of mentioned. Maybe some of you know a little bit more. I'm sure Curtis does because you've got a couple of his books. But the fact is that he would camp out either literally or, so to speak, out for hours, waiting for the light to just be absolutely perfect at a particular location. And once in a while, he would stumble upon a place, grab his camera, and do a somewhat instantaneous kind of photograph. But most of the time, his photographs were planned out based on the time of day and what the time of day was doing to the scene that he wanted to photograph. And when we look at his work, we can see from the technical side of things, like some of those images that have snow, we can see detail in the snow. And we can also then go to the opposite end of the tonal range and see detail in the shadows. And that is always been sort of like the big mystery or the pot of gold in photography if you can capture a scene like that and maintain detail both in the highlights and in the shadows. And that is what he really became known for. He wasn't really known as a creative in a lot of schools of thought. He was known more as a technical photographer. But the fact is that what he did with black and white was most creative, because he was able to actually capture what most people would never be able to. And that's part of the creative process. He developed a technique that we call pre-visualization. So he could look at a scene, and through the process that he developed with this manipulation of exposure and development in the processing, he would pre-visualize the scene and how it would look in black and white. And he would then base his exposure for the tonal range on that pre-visualization. And so a lot of times his negatives that he would print from could be almost straight prints. And it wasn't that he didn't manipulate in printing, he did. He would dodge and burn. He would spend days in the darkroom creating, a master print. And he was very detail orientated. So he wrote very detailed notes when he would shoot, and then the same thing in the darkroom. And one of his proteges, who's still shooting, John Sexton, who worked in his darkroom, has become sort of like the Ansel Adams of our generation, because he studied under him. And his work, when you look at the work of John Sexton, it really has that same kind of quality. It's not the same vision as Ansel Adams, but it has a lot of the same qualities as far as the black and white tonal range to it. So I think it's important that we can see, taking like what some might consider an ordinary subject, just say Half Dome at the Yosemite, and photograph that in such a unique way in black and white that it becomes really a piece of art. And of course, the prices for his original work is completely off the charts. There was one of the images that was shown, probably one of his more famous ones, is called Moonrise over Hernandez in New Mexico. And I think probably the going rate for that 16 by 20 print is well over $200,000 these days. So he's a good person to know about as far as inspiration, and as far as just putting also that category of how black and white can fit into, alternative methods or processes of photography. So I will, again, I'll post this particular link that we just watched, but that also has an article that goes with it on sort of, it says 10 things to know about Ansel Adams. So it's sort of like a condensed version of a lot of interesting facts about him. All right, then the next person, anybody have any questions about Ansel Adams? So I would just say, if you ever get a chance to look at any of his original work, which they'll have at the Getty Museum, once in a while they'll have a lot of it, they'll have a show of his work. Go take a look at it, because it's pretty magnificent, like I said before. All right, then our next person is going to be a fellow by the name of Robert Capa. And I'm showing you his work, or a little short video about Robert Capa, who is probably one of the most noted war photographers, war photojournalists in photography. He's no longer alive, but he's had many famous photographs that were done, especially in World War II. And again, I would consider him a person that did photography in an alternative way because he was a war correspondent. And I think it's something that, unfortunately, we're right in the middle of seeing some horrific imagery come out of the Ukraine. And I want to acknowledge the people that are also today's photographers who are capturing for history what's going on. But as I think with most things, we need to sort of look back in history and see, you know, who were the people that came before, and sort of set the benchmark for the people that are doing it today. So we'll take a little look at some of his work, and this really gets into one of his most famous photographs that was taken on D-Day in World War II. So let me bring that up. Back here to this, share the screen.
I'm John Morris. I happen to be Robert Capa's editor. On D-Day, I was then the photo editor of Life in London. Capa was a contract photographer for Life. He had covered several wars before he was assigned to cover the big one, which was D-Day. D-Day was Tuesday morning, June 6, 1944. BBC came on with a bulletin saying that Allied forces had landed somewhere in France. Just simply getting the film back was a major undertaking. It was long before the days of instant transmission. And so it meant physically getting undeveloped film back across the channel to London, where everything had to be processed and then censored. I had been waiting all day Tuesday and virtually all of Wednesday for the film to come back from Normandy. The tension was terrible. Finally, about 6 o'clock, a messenger came to the office on Dean Street with a packet from Capa. And then it was a note saying, John, the action is all in the rolls, the 4 rolls of 35 millimeter. I ordered the darkroom to give me contact prints as fast as possible because we were under terrible deadline pressure. A few minutes later, a darkroom lad came running into my office saying, John, the films are ruined. You were in such a hurry. Then I put them in the drying cabinet and closed the doors, and the emulsion ran. I couldn't believe it, but I ran back to the darkroom with him, held up the rolls one at a time, and there was nothing on the first 3 rolls, but on the 4th roll, there were 11 frames that had images, and I ordered them all to be printed. It's interesting, and I didn't think of it at the time, but there's one picture that stands out, and that's the picture that shows clearly the head of an American soldier as he approaches the shore. It never occurred to me until later that in order to take that picture, Capa had to get ahead of that soldier and turn his back on the action, which is quite remarkable, and also is an indication of Capa's courage. I think that photo stands out because it humanizes the invasion. There is a single man walking ashore. My deadline for Life was 9 o'clock Thursday morning. when a courier would leave Grosvenor Square with film bound for Prestwick in Scotland, and from Prestwick to Newfoundland, and from Newfoundland to Washington, and from Washington to New York. That was the circuit that I had to cope with. We just sent the film. We didn't have to tell them that we had lost most of it. I used to take the rap for having been in charge of that film losing operation. Now I simply take credit for saving the pictures that survived. But we were so relieved when late Saturday night or Sunday morning, we got a cable from Dan Longwell, the managing editor of Life, saying, "Congratulations, you did a great job," and so on. It was a great relief to know that. Life was the only eyewitness that really was respected, because there was no television. It was Life that gave people a sense of how things really looked. The Omaha Beach story as a whole was perhaps the most memorable in my entire lifetime. And I've been privileged to work through many important stories of the 20th century.
All right, so have any of you seen any of those photographs before?
Yes, yes.
Ah, okay. How did you see it? How did you come about it?
Usually in like history class, like I remember they would pass by those photos. And I think in other classes, like other photography classes I've taken,
Mhm.
they're always mentioning like the D-Day photos and
Right.
comparing it to like Saving Private Ryan and everything.
Right, exactly. Yeah, absolutely. Anybody else?
I'm sure I have. I don't remember it being specifically Robert Capa, but
Mhm.
I watch like so many like war documentaries, and I don't know why, but I'm fascinated with it. And so I'm sure I've seen it. Like I'm sure I've seen it in a documentary or in an article or in class. Um, because it looks familiar, but it's also such a like in history, like sometimes you'll see photos and you're like, yes, yes, I've seen that before, but I guess it just
Well,
kind of comes.
it's also interesting in that Robert Capa started from that group of photographs, and there was obviously other photographers that were involved in World War II. It started a group called Magnum Photo Agency, and when photographs like that were taken back then, the distribution to other newspapers, there wasn't really any way that, say, like the New York Times would get that. Well, in this case, it was Time Life magazine. So they would have the film, but there would be, say, newspapers that would want to also use that imagery, and there wasn't really any way to get that to other distribution. And so Magnum Photo, which was founded by Robert Capa and a couple of the other people that came back from photographing the war, they started a syndication agency, and that agency is called Magnum Photo, which is still around. And so the syndication that agency then became a distributor for those photographers' works. And as was mentioned in that little video, he wasn't a staff photographer for Life magazine. He was a contract photographer. So the difference being, if you're a staff photographer, you're employed by Time Life. And so everything that you do, because you're employed by them, they own. And that's called work for hire. So if somebody has a full salary job with all the benefits for a magazine, say like Life magazine, because they did have salaried photographers, the individual photographer does not own the copyright. In this case, it would be Time Life owned it, but he was a contract photographer, meaning he was freelance. So he formed Magnum to be able to get that group of photographers to get their work distributed in a much wider way. And that was sort of the beginnings of syndication of news photography. So there's sort of this tentacle from what happened with Time Life and those photographers, and how that was a step to the modernization of getting photography distributed in many different magazines at that time. And of course, today, the distribution channels are so multiple, going from, say, Instagram to, and Magnum is still around, but there's many other agencies like that where a photographer's contract or freelance, and then they upload, via the link, their imagery, and then that imagery is distributed to various publications. So anyway, that's sort of historically interesting that that was the evolution of the syndication of photography. It's also, I would just say that you all are, in the past, I guess we could say 3 years, have been witness to multiple historic events, not just in your lifetime, but in the future lifetimes of people that have been documented by many photographers in different ways. And I think it's our job as photographers to sort of be aware of who the people are that are, in this case, putting their lives at risk to be able to tell the world what's going on. Have any of you seen any imagery that you would consider very profound from what's been going on over the last 6 days?
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of very profound imagery coming out of Ukraine right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of, sorry.
You're good, go.
I feel like there's like a lot of like photos and videos, like both hand in hand, because I've never seen like so many videos, like, but everybody like is making like their own compilations or their journeys of how they're getting to like Romania.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to both see like photographs and videos at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, that's sort of the new photojournalist, is a person that does both. It's either shooting stills, or doing video also. And that's, but it's actually pretty wonderful that we're able to have that technology. Emily, did you have somebody that you're following, or?
Yeah, well, so so his name is Wolfgang Schwan, and I kind of found it like by accident, but found out that he had an Instagram and he had a lot of these really incredible photos, and he's an American photographer that went to Ukraine to document everything. So he's based out of Philadelphia.
Mhm.
But through following his page, he also posts a bunch of other photographers, and I posted on my Instagram story today. Basically, it's like a bunch of photojournalists
Mhm.
that have been documenting it, whether they are from Ukraine, from different areas, and they were spending time there, or they got caught up in it because they traveled there and then they were trying to leave, like that kind of thing. And so it's been really interesting to see how, I guess, the difference in how people, like what people think is the most important part of the history. What they go out and what they find and what they feel like is worthy of documenting. I think it's kind of interesting
Yeah.
because it's all very, very different, and you can see different styles in
Mhm.
photography in it too.
Yeah, definitely. Actually, here's Lindsay Darrell. Let me pull this up on the screen. And she's with New York Times and is there. And her work is pretty impressive. So this is where, and she has been named news photographer of the year, I think last year. So she's not from Ukraine. She's based out of New York, but she is now in Ukraine. And I think that what's interesting about her work is under such stressful conditions, she's still aware of light, composition, you know, and telling the story. You know, every one of her photographs is absolutely, you know, stunning and moving. You know, she captures the moment. So I'll post her link, unless you've written it down. I'll post it in our pages module on Canvas. Pretty striking. But it takes a very special kind of person to be able to put themselves in that kind of situation and be able to capture with sort of an artistic eye, you know, with composition, lighting, etc. Not just necessarily a snapshot. That takes a very special kind of person. There's a couple of other sites that I'll just bring up that you can take a look at also that I'll post. And this isn't necessarily about the war in particular. So this is a site that has emerging photographers from Ukraine, and it was started before the war, but there's always sort of been that element of war in Ukraine. So these are different photographers from Ukraine. So I'll post that so you can also take a look at that. And then there was one more here. Let me see what's this one. Get it up here. And share the screen again. So this one is 8 photographers you need to follow in Ukraine. So this is not just females, this is current photographers. Okay. So anyway, that's sort of a, I would say, a subcategory of alternative photography. And like I said, it's pretty historic times that we're living in, and very brave people that are out there capturing history. All right, so let's go on to anybody have any questions or other comments about current affairs?
Yeah, if I could get sidetracked all night with that. There's a lot going on.
Yeah, it's pretty terrible. All right, so I think what I want to do now is take a look at, I think there's a couple of pieces or a couple of assignments we weren't able to review last week. So let me go to our assignment page. And see, actually Victoria is not here, so I guess we won't look at that. Let's see, Curtis, did we looked at, did we see all of your work last week?
No, last week, I'm not sure. Was it the minimalist photos or was it the abstract ones? I didn't have access to the photos, being able to share it through class last week.
Okay.
And I'm still having that problem with sharing with my phone. And they're on there still. Oh, just lost the video.
All right, so I think what we'll do is we'll go, Jasmine, I have your time assignment, which I don't think we saw in class, did we?
I think we
no.
did. I think mine was the incense and
Okay.
the butterfly video. Yeah.
Yes, you're right. Sorry about that. See that now. And we saw Emily's. But let's see. Okay, so I think we got everybody on that one. Let me go back and see on the okay, so I think we didn't look at your abstract, Jasmine.
Let me see.
Like, let me see if I can pull it up here. Yeah, right. We didn't look at that before. So I can either pull it up, or if you've got it in your computer, I don't know, maybe it's just easier for me to do it and you can talk about it. Let me do it that way.
Oh, I see.
So this one.
So I basically just took photos of mostly clouds. I've always been obsessed with clouds since I was little. And recently I think I want to paint the ones that I photograph, only because I think it's cool. So I could put like the time at the bottom and say what time I took it at. But this one specifically, I played a lot around with my phone and I was moving like the exposure and I didn't know that I could control all of that on my phone now. So I was just playing around with it. And basically this is at the top of the mall around my area, Northridge Mall. And this is just like apartment complexes. But at the time, the lighting was so good. And I was trying to go to a park, but I just stopped and I was like, okay, I have to park now. I was like, or else the sun's gonna go away. So it's just a sunset. And then I added this like, this like kind of filter on top because I thought it looked cool. It looks like paper, but it's actually like a photo. And it looks all like mysterious. And I like the little lights from the lamps from the sidewalks. How it just goes down. So I was just messing around.
Well, that's part of the process.
Definitely.
Is messing around.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So I work at the Northridge Mall,
Uh-huh.
Which was this like on the complex, like on Shirley?
I don't. Yeah, it's like where.
Like where it's all the apartment
Yeah,
complexes, like across the street?
where the public storage is and like the side
Oh,
of
okay.
is. I was
Yeah.
on the top of the parking structure, but a part of the mall.
Right. Okay.
So basically, I guess that'd be the entrance, like behind Buffalo Wild Wings. That park.
Okay. Yeah, I know where that is.
Yeah,
I would not have guessed that that's where it was
yeah.
by the
So
photos.
I
So
literally just pulled over. I was like, wait, no, I have to stop here. Let me just go at the top of this parking structure. And
I
then
think
I
it's really cool.
thank you.
Yeah, that's a great angle. And then we got, I know you have clouds. So, okay, so you did like,
Oh yeah, I did like kind of a collage thing.
great.
I forgot who I was inspired by, but I think I was just looking at random photographers and I liked a collage kind of
Mhm.
thing. So the same thing, I was just messing around and I did take pictures in black and white and color on my phone so I could see what's the difference. So I incorporated both color and black and white into the
Nice.
little collage here. And this moment, I was actually at a cemetery. And I, for some reason, I like going at night, which is weird because I know it's like scary. But when I looked at the clouds, I was just like, wow, like you could really see the fluffiness of the clouds. Like you could really see it. But I just didn't think that my camera would capture it as much as my eyes did. And it did. Like you could see like the leaves and the clouds, and they just look like looks like whipped cream to me. So it's weird just seeing that floating above me. So I just wanted to take a picture of it because it looked cool.
Is that the moon?
Yes, that is the moon. I think that night it was a full moon
Yeah.
and the light was just so nice.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's sort of mesmerizing.
Yes, I really love this one. So I'm happy I was like able to capture it at the right moment. And then same with this one, I was just messing around with the angles. So at the cemetery, there's like a hill. You could
Mhm.
basically just go up and down the hill, just running up and down. Because the hill is the cemetery is on it's Eternal Valley. So it's like on the way to Santa Clarita. And it's on a hill. So if you're at the top, like you could get different angles, and if you're at the bottom, you get different angles. So here you could see the moon now because
Right.
one, the clouds were moving, and I just kept trying to look for the moon.
Mhm.
So I like how you could like see the clouds because the moon is shining on the clouds closest, and the ones farther are like super dark. So I just like just to see the density of the clouds, it just looks nice.
So when with this particular image is the did you manipulate this as far as being able to use the highlights and shadows to manipulate it so
I
that
did. I
Yeah.
did. I messed around with I think the same thing, exposure. And I was just messing around with the different filters. They have presets and just random stuff on iPhone. And I was just trying to look through. I took so many pictures. I had to go through so many photos. But these were the ones that stood out to me the most. And I did play around with exposure, I believe shadows, just to like try to get the light of the moon more intense and the clouds a little darker.
Well, there's a proper exposure for the moon, because the moon is reflecting what? What does the moon reflect?
The sun.
The sun, right? So the actual proper exposure for the moon, especially a full moon, is what you would set your camera at for the proper exposure of taking a picture in the middle of the day, on the street. So going by our sunny 16 rule, which maybe some of you know or not know, the sunny 16 rule is you use f16 and then whatever the ISO that you have set, so let's just say it's ISO 100, that's what you would use as the shutter speed. And you could automatically just set the camera at ISO 100, f16, at 1/100th of a second, and that would give you the proper exposure in the middle of the day for a bright sunny day. And so we can use that same equation when we're shooting photographs of the moon, because you're actually exposing for a bright sunny day, which is sort of unusual to think about, but that's the reality of it. And in this photograph, you know, you have like a really wide tonal range, you know, going from very bright, you know, the detail, because we're seeing detail in the moon. And so was this on your cell phone?
Yes, it was on my iPhone 13.
Okay. So, you know, was able to capture really a wide range of values going from bright sunny exposure to a darker underside of the clouds. It's really an interesting photograph. I like what you did with this.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Very nice. Okay, so I think we've seen everybody else's version for abstract. So I think that was the only one we had to review tonight. Stop share. All right. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to do is just review this assignment for your final project. And I posted the proposal part of it, which has details for the final part. So let's just go over that. Let me bring that up.
Emily, your cat's so cute.
Thank you. She's like getting really into it. She's really enjoying the
She looks
pets
so
today.
relaxed.
Becoming our class mascot.
Yeah.
Almost there. Okay, so this has already been posted, so I don't know if any of you have looked at this yet, but let's just go over this and see if you've got any questions. So what I'm asking you to do first is write up a proposal for your final project, and you create a final body of work. And the requirements for that would be that it would be at least 10 to 15 images. And this revolves around your personal vision for alternative photo methods and media. So far this semester, you know, we've looked at a lot of different ways of categorizing photography into alternative methods. And some of the things that I, you know, have put down here, and these are just some examples, you know, would be the use of black and white, use of toned images, use of apps that replicate retro or antique methods. And then we have, you know, using specific lenses or apertures throughout the work, use of multiple images to create one final print, you know, such as we looked at with David Hockney. Use of negative space around the image, unique aspect ratio. So like if you were doing panoramics, the unique lighting solutions, use of analog or the look of analog. So the look of film. And then the presentation of this will be, you know, your choice. So if you want to make prints, you know how to do that. You can put it in a PowerPoint, a PDF, or if you want to put a book together, or what other method that you would want to propose. And so these are just, you know, some ideas. And let's go back up to right above where it says some examples. So the subject matter for this body of work can be of one type of subject. So let's just say you're interested in landscape photography as an example. So everything that you want to include in this body of work could be landscape orientated. Or if you want to apply some of these techniques to a variety of subjects, you could do that. And then we go to the body of work should have a thread that runs through it that creates continuity. And that's sort of where these other elements that I've listed can help you out. So you could shoot, so let's just say, you wanted to do architect or landscape. So, a very classic example would be, you're going to use black and white. Now, within black and white, there's subcategories, right? So you could have it to where the contrast of the black and white was either flat, or maybe you want to try and do Ansel Adams, so you have like a wide range of tones, or you even get into more of a high contrast look to it. So within each one of these categories that I've just used as examples, you have all these different subcategories that you could get into. But what I'm also asking you to do is that when I say a thread that runs through it that creates continuity, so that when we look at the body of work, even though the subject matter might vary, let's just say the aspect ratio of all of the images are the same. So that's what develops the continuity, not necessarily the subject. So you have your choice of either sticking with one particular subject, or doing a variety of subjects. And what pulls it together on the variety of subjects would be having certain aspects of that have continuity to it. And obviously the same thing if you just did the same with if you just chose one subject, you could use certain elements that are the same throughout your whole body of work. Does that make sense to everybody? Do you have questions about that? So the definition in our case of alternative photo media or methods is pretty wide open. And we've looked at a lot of different photographers' works, going from say Hockney to more abstract expressionism, and then to more conceptual things like the time element, to doing self-portraits. So the subject that you want to work on can be whatever is going to give you some satisfaction. It's not I'm not asking you to pick a subject that you think that I'm gonna really like. It's really up to you to pick a subject or subjects that you have an interest in, and then want to apply some type of technique to make it unique. So that's sort of it in a nutshell. Questions? Okay, so what I'm looking for by Sunday, this coming Sunday, is an outline. So you don't have to, I'm not expecting you to give me a shot list. I wouldn't expect you to have visualized your shot list yet. What I want to see is either one solid idea that you really want to do, or if you have 2 or 3 different ideas and want to submit 2 or 3 ideas, I can maybe direct you to one that might be more attainable, that you might have more success with. And so you're not necessarily having to worry about a shot list, but I do want to get sort of like an overview of what your concept would be. and any kinds of the alternative techniques that you think you want to incorporate. So that's going to be due Sunday. And then I would just let you know that you're good to go on your idea, or I might suggest some other suggestions to you. And you should then be able to start working on that. So the final project would be presented at our final class meeting on the 25th of April. And again, you know, your presentation of that, you know, is really sort of up to you.
I think you said for next week that we're going to be doing a cyanotype demonstration.
Well, next week is spring break.
Ah, okay. So the meeting, it'll be the next Tuesday after that.
Right, exactly. So we'll plan on meeting at the campus.
Okay.
And I'll have the stuff with me. So there isn't anything that you necessarily have to prepare for that. That I'll bring everything that, you know, is necessary.
Well, that's why I was curious if it was going to be next week, because I was going to bring in I have some ideas for maybe for the final project, and I want to bring in some different materials to cyanotype print on as an experiment, but I'll probably have to do that this next week.
Yeah, well, so like in your proposal, then Curtis, you would just say, you know, you're interested in using, you know, materials to create cyanotypes.
Okay, definitely. Yeah, I definitely will.
Okay. All right. All right. So what I'm going to do is we're going to sort of conclude our class, and I want you to be able to actually work on this tonight. I'm giving you until, you know, Sunday for your submission of your proposal, but I'm willing to give class time for the, you know, that you can dedicate now to start brainstorming about what some ideas that you might want to create for your body of work would be. And just a reminder, this list that I put together is not necessarily the final list, because obviously, you know, I didn't list out all of the things that we've talked about. It's just to get your, you know, to get you brainstorming about things. So it's pretty wide open, which in some cases can be tougher than just giving you the exact specs. Okay, so any questions?
I have a couple, but I'll just wait until after everyone leaves if they want, because it's just more picking your brain about processes.
Okay. Well, you can go ahead, and I'm sure everybody would be interested.
Okay, so one of the things that I'm definitely looking into is pinhole cameras. And so my curiosity, what I've been, I don't know if you've seen, I've been messing with chlorophyll prints and experimenting with that. So those are some of the things that I want to experiment with for the next week, is like maybe if I'm even able to do chlorophyll prints with a pinhole camera. So if I drop organic material in there, if it'll be strong enough even to have an effect. It might take a week or 2 weeks, but that's fine if it'll have the effect. And then also how like rinsing and fixing cyanotype on organic material like leaves or things like that, if it'll stay.
Mm-hmm. Well, so I'm having not done it on organic materials like that. I really couldn't say. I think that's, you know, there's plenty of research that you can find online, you know, specifically about that. I couldn't really advise you, you know, on the technique, other than, you know, doing straightforward science.
Yeah,
like
experimentation.
We'll do that in class. It's sort of very straightforward. So I'll have to leave that up to you to be the discoverer for us.
Oh no, definitely. That's why I was hoping that we would have that class this next Tuesday, because I was going to bring in a big old alocasia leaf that we just pulled, but it'll be all rotted and wilted by then.
Yeah, you have to find another one. Okay, any other questions? All right, so take some time tonight, because I'm going to give it to you, and just start thinking about this. And you don't have to send it to me tonight. So it's a lot of times it's maybe your first idea is what you're going to go with, but give this a couple days, but start on it tonight and think about where you want to go with it. All right, any questions on subject matter as far as what you might want to do? Because that's pretty wide open. I just want to make sure everybody understands that. All right, well, if you have any questions in the meantime, you can email me or we can do a one-on-one meeting if that is going to help you. Otherwise, I'll just take a look at things on Sunday evening, or you can send it to me before, post it before, and I'll take a look at it and give you some feedback. All right, then. Okay. Let me just get rid of this and we'll say good night to everybody. Or it's too early for good night, but we'll say so long. And take some time and do some brainstorming.
Definitely will do. It was good seeing everybody again.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, see you, Chris.
Yeah.